I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and growing up in Columbus, Ohio, only applied to schools on the coast. And so I came down here in 2003 to go to the College of Charleston. Um, Spent a few different stints at the College of Charleston. A couple of them stuck, so I ended up with communications and accounting degrees from the college at a couple of those stints. But you know, was always a big reader. A lot of teachers in my family, particularly English teachers and reading teachers, especially for early childhood education type stuff. My mom and both my grandmothers. So that was always a big thing for us growing up. And while I didn't necessarily pursue any of that academically, it was always kind of a major hobby of mine. And so I just always thought, it would be cool if there was somewhere, if I was by myself and I needed dinner or something, I'd bring a book with me and go sit at a bar and get something to eat and read. And so I always thought it would be cool if there was a place that kind of had a little bit more of it wasn't weird to do that.
Right.
But then was hanging out at Moe's Crosstown one night when my friends were all busy that night, so I was there on my own. And Jenny came in and sat down next to me, and we started talking about beer, and then we started talking about books, and we spent an hour or two kind of talking about authors and books that we liked. So that's kind of how we met, was in a dive bar talking about books. And so now 10 plus years later, we've kind of come full circle where we now own a bar where you can talk about books.
Any success stories yet? Like yours? Like any people who've met?
Here?
Yeah.
We've had some definitely first or second dates.
Yeah.
I don't know that
We've hosted 2 weddings.
We've hosted 2 weddings. I don't know that anybody's met here that is dating, but we would love to be that
Yeah,
person.
if they have, we would love to know.
That would be great.
And how did you crash? Like, how did you end up at Charleston?
I spent my 20s in New York working in advertising, and after 7 years was burnt out and looking for somewhere to move to.
Yeah.
My parents were considering like retiring down here eventually, so we started vacationing down here. So I liked Charleston and was like, all right, let's give that a whirl. So I picked up and moved down here. I didn't know anybody, didn't have a job, I had a place to live. But so it's kind of similarly, like I would go out to bars and get dinner and stuff and bring a book and sit and read by myself. And I do remember people being like, how can you, that's so weird, or how can you concentrate? I'm like, I don't know, I just can. Like, this isn't a weird thing. This is totally normal.
In New York, yeah, people do it all the time. Yeah.
So, and then a couple of years later, walked into Moe's, met him, and I think reading and like we both have an interest in wine and craft beer, and so this. This was the someday we'll do it, and then it became the why are we waiting, let's do it sort of thing, and kind of combining all of our interests. So that's how we ended up here.
Awesome. Do you remember the book you were reading?
Well, I wasn't actually reading a book when we met, but we talked about, our first conversation started with which kind of classic authors we liked.
Yeah.
And we're very different. I was more Austen and the Brits, and he was more Faulkner and the Americans.
I remember we talked about Faulkner a lot and how much you don't like Faulkner.
The man does not use punctuation.
And how
it's not easy to follow.
He's one of my all-time favorites. And I was reading a lot of Faulkner at that time, but he is still definitely one of my favorites.
And where the name of Philosophers and Fools comes from.
True.
It's from a phrase in The Sound and the Fury.
Yeah.
So that one really came back to bite me after our very first meeting, and I was like, Faulkner, and then our stories.
Joke's on you.
Forever follows you.
Yeah.
Do you ever have big arguments about, not arguments, but do you, taste-wise, do you clash?
I mean,
we read very different.
Yeah, we very rarely read the same books.
Yeah.
We've probably read, I would say, like the year and a half or so that we've been open, I think we've probably read the same book maybe
Okay.
3 or 4 times, not at the exact same time. There's only been a couple times where we've done stuff simultaneously. And that has been, actually, we just did it recently with a new nonfiction book called A Marriage at Sea, which is about this couple who spent 4 months stranded in a life raft in the middle of the Pacific.
After
And,
a
like,
whale like knocked their
Knocked their boat over.
Yeah.
yeah. So we both did that one, but otherwise, yeah, it's really only been like probably 3 or 4 books in the last couple of years that we've both read. And I think for the most part, we both liked it. The only book that I think we differed on was when you and some other of our friends encouraged me to read a romance book. So I gave it a
Michael's first
shot.
and only romance.
Yeah. And I was confused as to why it was so predictable. And everybody was like, that's the whole point. But so that was the only one that I think that we have both read in the last couple of years that we didn't at least kind of come in at the same place.
Sure.
But
That was more for your
that,
education.
yeah, and that wasn't
on the genre.
surprising. Yeah, I don't think anybody was expecting me to really jump on the romance train. If you know anything about our book club, it's that a Michael pick is traditionally dark and problematic and depressing. So
That's
romance
mine.
is not exactly my genre.
How does, and that's interesting, like how the whole thing works. Like, how does the shop work as far as like which books you choose? How do you get them in?
Yeah, so a lot of research. I mean, everything that is coming out now or in the next couple months, I mean, we are selecting every
Right.
single title. And when we first opened, it was, listening to customers, and we still do, and seeing what they're interested in. Because when we first opened, we're like, well, we've got across all genres. Let's see if one is more popular than the other. And really, like, it's pretty cool, but I think people have come to know that we have all the genres, so they're kind of like come to us if they aren't sure what they're looking for or just kind of want to hunt around and then find something. But it's a lot of research. I talk with my publishers, contacts, and we
A lot of Publishers Weekly.
a lot of reading Publishers Weekly, but the publishers, tell you what's coming out and kind of what efforts they're putting against certain books. A perk is that we can request advance copies of books, not all, but a lot of them. So if I'm kind of on the fence about something, I can read it before it comes out and then choose to bring it in. And it's also helpful because then if I've already read a book that then comes out, I can talk to people firsthand about it right
About
away.
what it is. Yeah.
But really, it's a lot of research and a lot of listening to people. And then we have certain things that we want to have, like books that mean a lot to us or that we love, and our personal tastes are definitely infused in what we carry. And then, we're looking for, who are the literary prize winners. We want to make sure they're represented. Also looking at just like diversity in both, region and socioeconomic class and race. And, we've started to look more into bringing in authors that aren't American. So, different worldly voices on the
We-
fiction side and nonfiction
We
side.
want to have something for everybody. So it's, obviously that is bestsellers and new releases. That is, more popular genres like sci-fi fantasy or romance or, thriller. But it's also, the deeper cuts and the older stuff. It's, Raymond Chandler, Agatha Christie, Dashiell Hammett, not just Gillian Flynn. It is, not just going with, the Jonathan Franzen or something. It's also having Gujuwa Chiongo or Zhan Shui and some weird, deeper cuts that, aren't going to maybe move quite as quick as the others. And so we do kind of try to balance the stuff that we know will sell regularly and quickly while still kind of filling in that stuff for folks who like to find weird stuff in a bookstore and are kind of still trying to catch up on the last 100 years of literature before they get to the new releases. So exactly, it's we probably sold Lonesome Dove and things like that, a good number of times, because there's a lot of people who want to read the Pulitzer Prize winners from, the 70s, 80s, 90s before they're interested in picking up something that came out in the last few months. And so we do try to, we spend a tremendous amount of time keeping an eye on that stuff and looking at the lists and looking at what's coming out and looking at and talking to our customers and what are their favorite books of all time, who are their favorite authors, do we have that represented in here, and things like that.
Is there any real, talking about the 70s and, going back that far, are there real differences you spot in what you read now versus then? And how would you qualify it? And that might be a question that's not a question at all, but
if I'm understanding the question correctly, this would be my answer, is that I don't know necessarily. I think a couple of things have changed. For one thing, it's how they're marketed. I think that certain genres like fantasy, particularly a subgenre of that, and romantasy, and thrillers and things like that, get a lot more marketing dollars nowadays than they would have 30 or 40 years ago. Genre fiction in general is a whole lot more popular now than it was, say, 30 or 40 years ago.
right.
Also, the preeminent voices that publishers are pushing have changed a lot, especially in the last 10 years. So you're seeing a lot more women, BIPOC authors, things like that, you look at the most famous or kind of classic books from, say, the 70s, and it's Philip Roth and it's John Updike and it's Sal Bellow and some of those guys, and it is a lot of white dudes. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of those books that I love, but it is nowadays a lot more diverse, and the authors that are getting marketing dollars behind them, that are getting bestsellers, that are getting kind of their voices amplified in a way that they weren't before, which obviously is a good thing. And it really kind of opens up readers' ability to either see themselves in those books or see themselves in those authors, but also to be able to empathize with more of a worldview than kind of the white American man. And again, there's some stuff like that, going back to a John Updike book or something like that, it is really fun for me, but it's also really fun to read stuff from, newer, authors that in 1975 would not have even gotten a sniff from any publishers.
Right.
I think also it's how you access them. Back then it was probably just word of mouth, maybe a TV news program and magazines, but now we have national book clubs and the internet and book talk, and so you can
Book talk's been a big one.
find and go down a rabbit hole of, I want this specific type of book, and it will probably be served to you in some way that you can find it. So I think that's helped a lot of authors rise in popularity or get in front of people that maybe they wouldn't have, whereas back then there was only a couple channels to get in front of folks.
So I'm going to show my total ignorance now. Book talk. What's book talk?
Book talk. So TikTok, if you use the hashtag book talk, it's a lot of people giving book recommendations or reviews, and then depending on which ones you watch, it'll also skew even more specific if you're into fantasy or romantasy or nonfiction or literary, and you can kind of just go that way.
And you can find sort of book influencers on social media that you like their tastes and start following them. And some of those, again, some of those are suggesting books that have been out for a while that were not bestsellers, that were not, number one books or anything like that. But particularly things like nonfiction, you'll find some book influencers saying this is the best book if you're looking for a history on, whatever, this is the best book on that. And so if you find those people that you're looking for those types of things, you can follow them. They can give you suggestions, where, to her point, that wasn't a thing, quite frankly, probably before about 2020. And so that's changed. And then, quite frankly, there's also authors that we're probably self-publishing, or we're publishing through very small imprints and getting next to no marketing dollars that, Book Talk got a hold of and just amplified. Rebecca Yarros comes to mind, where her Fourth Wing series, social media got a hold of that, and it is just an incredibly popular series that I don't know that it would have gotten anywhere near the popularity it has now if not for that Book Talk push.
Get it out. Romantasy.
Romantasy, yes. So fantasy that is, the plot is mostly based on the romance.
Interesting.
And it can get spicy.
That was always the Russo brothers, who I worked with a ways back. They were always talking about cross genre, like how it was all going to be cross genre, and it's like that's a new one for me too.
Yeah.
Romantasy.
Romantasy. There's a bunch of subgenres in different sections, which is interesting because if you do find what you're interested in, then it's an easy, oh well, then read this next.
Yeah.
In some cases, it does make it hard for us to figure out where on the shelf to put them.
things. Yeah.
Is this romance? Is this fantasy? Is this horror? Is it fantasy?
We know where it is.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can't find
We
it,
can
just
help
ask
you.
us. But
Yeah.
but it is fun because it does kind of mix things up, and I think it gets people. It lets people dip a toe in maybe a genre that they wouldn't otherwise have read if they're romance readers and they don't think they like fantasy, but then they read a romantasy book and they like it, then maybe they're willing to go to a straight up fantasy book, or vice versa. So I think it helps kind of like get people slightly out of their comfort zone while still being fairly comfortable.
It seems like there's a lot more interaction, or maybe tell me if I'm wrong, with the reader. Is that true?
I mean, I think so. I mean, on the social media front, definitely. But I think that's the wonderful thing about an independent bookstore is, you come in and, I mean, we can spend a lot of time, as much time as they want, or we have the capacity for, in talking about books and finding, like, what really is going to be of interest and, what you might like. And that's the fun part of it. Like, I love to talk about to books with people, and
It's honestly
and
like
when they
one
come
of,
back in and say they really liked it, like that makes me so excited.
That's what, I was just going to say the same thing. It's like one of the most exciting things is when you've suggested books to somebody who comes back in and says, I loved that book. What else do you have?
Yeah.
And then you can kind of, it's almost like going back down and revisiting those books for yourself, but kind of through someone else's eyes, where it's like, okay, it wasn't just me. That was a fantastic book, I hadn't read it in a couple years, and this person really liked it, and then they'll come in and they'll sit at the bar and talk to us about it. And there's parts of it that I forgot, and when we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, you're right, I forgot about that character or whatever. It's just really fun to kind of revisit a book that you really enjoyed, but to see somebody else kind of also really enjoy it and have that kind of bond.
Right. And you guys read a lot of books.
We do.
So
Trying to. I mean, I'm never catching up.
Yeah. How long does it? Well, the interesting it was a pivot. One of the podcasts the other day I hear we're down to less than a book a year. The average American reads.
reading
It was one, but less than a book a year.
Yeah.
Although on the flip side, those who are reading
Read more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming a smaller portion of the population, but the people who are reading a lot. I forget the exact stat, but it was something like, I read somewhere once that something like 90+% of the beer in the world is drank by like less than 5% of the people in the world or something.
And
I
it's
think we're
Bud
getting
Light.
there with books, maybe too.
Yeah, it's very true. Like that's stunning. Like the people that drink a lot of beer drink a lot of beer. How many books though? Like how many books do you?
I mean, I read a physical one and I listen to one, and I've tried to do more, and my brain can't handle that at once. So usually I've got 2 books going at a time. So I would say I probably usually get in 6 books a month. But unless it's a busy month, then 4. But I'm usually at least doing 4 a month. I'm aiming for 6. But with our schedule here, it's a little hard to fit more than that in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably on pace for about a book a week for a year. similar to her, I generally always have an audiobook going and a physical book going. And then if I'm behind on the book club pick, then I might need to go with a third book at the same time. But yeah, about a book a week.
And you finish them.
Yes.
Yeah, I cannot
Yeah.
not finish a book.
That's
I've only ever
Sharon.
not finished one book in my entire life, and that was Jose Canseco's memoir, which was just truly awful.
I have not finished a couple. I think because we read so much being here
Yeah.
that if it's something I can't get into and I while I want to feel like I could finish it, it's just going to slow me down.
Right.
So I'll often put things aside and then maybe revisit it later. And then on audiobooks, I've not finished some if I am not a fan of the narrator.
It's amazing how that ruins it.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, like, on an audiobook, if it's not done well,
Yeah.
like, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends.
And on the flip side of that, if you have a really good narrator, how much better that book can be in some cases. We've had people here say that when they pick an audiobook, they don't search books or genres, they search narrators. And if it's a narrator they like and trust, they will listen to whatever that narrator's done. I'm currently doing an audiobook of the new James Baldwin biography, and that narrator does James Baldwin's voice incredibly well.
It's interesting.
And so, like, all the quotes and things like that, it very much lends an additional sort of value add to that book because it feels like you're hearing actual clips from James Baldwin.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm really, like, the audiobook is that kind of crossover to theater. In other words, if you look at that kind of, if you take the word and the imagination, which in film, that word's going to go to, it's going to take the place of your imagination. Whereas in theater, you get to use a little of your imagination, and in books, you're an artist. In other words, the reader is as much the artist as anybody else by kind of creating it.
Yeah.
But I think that audio is just that transition out of to where somebody else is not quite interpreting. And I like with a reader, it's different, but I like a reader that I kind of trust that isn't working too hard. You know, if they're like, playing up the woods, you know, you're like, it's a little much.
Yeah. Or if they make a certain character or multiple characters kind of like caricature-ish.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get that you're trying to do different voices and
Yeah.
And that's hard.
that's hard,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of characters and you have to make them sound very different.
Yeah.
But there have been certain books where I'm just like, man, I hope this character gets written out of this book soon because I cannot stand how this person is
Yeah.
like doing this voice.
Stephen King book, they may not last.
Yeah.
I've done 3 or 4 audiobooks now, and it's the hardest part, and producing a few things. It's like you need a woman's voice and a man's voice if you have those different characters, or if a character is way outside the voice, it's like all of a sudden you're so talking like this. No, it doesn't
Yeah.
work. It doesn't
Yeah.
work. The other person that can do that. Have you ever listened to any Stephen King?
I haven't.
It's the guy from here, Will Patton.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He's a very interesting. He reads most of those books, like The Outsider and some of those other ones. He's
Okay.
very good at it. It's interesting.
Oh, that's fun.
Do you?
That.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite reader?
Unlike the person that he was representing, I don't choose based on
Yeah.
the voice. I choose based on is it something I'm interested in listening to and reading. But if it is a voice that then I'm like, I just can't hang with you for 7 hours, then that's about it.
Yeah, agreed. I generally will get into a book and partway through be like, I'm not digging the narrator, but again, I'm not going to not finish this book.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we're going to power through, and I'm going to pretend that person isn't making that voice.
You guys are professional readers. That's like Sharon. She's like, I'm going to finish this book. And I'm like, I'm a bailer. I bail.
I mean, sometimes it's better to bail, I think, because there have been certain books that have taken me way too long to finish, and I get done with them, and I'm just like, I didn't really like it, and I knew I wasn't going to like it halfway through, and I could have started on something else in the meantime, but
Yeah, I feel like reading does have a momentum to it, and it's not passive, it's active. Like you have to make time for it.
Yeah.
Audiobook, you can clean the house and do other things, but reading a physical book, you need to sit down, take time for it, pay attention, and I don't know. So I think if there's something that I think it's going to slow me down, I'll lose my momentum of reading. I'd rather put it aside or not finish it than try and get through it and then say, I've been reading this book for 3 months,
Do you do a lot of going back? I mean, you were talking earlier about going back. Do you find books hit you in different places at different times that you go back to, or?
I think I was talking about this with somebody the other day at the bar. I think I've only ever read maybe 2 books more than once.
Really?
Yeah. And that has been probably The Sound and the Fury and The Great Gatsby. Mostly just because there's so much other stuff I want to read. And there's new books coming out, and there's stuff that's been out for a while. It's been on my list forever. And, the idea of going back to a book that I already read feels like I am not checking off the ones I also want to read.
Yeah.
I have. I mean, I would say the bulk of them were ones that I read either as like a teenager or early on, or classics. But some of them I just feel like I just love them so much that if I feel like I just need like a little hug, I want to go back and read something that I'm familiar with. And then more current books, I've had a couple that I finished and immediately started to read again, just because I was either how it ended or I just loved the prose so much that I just kind of wanted to not put it away yet. But yeah. And then I'll reread a kid's book once a year just to see if it still holds up. And you've done that too.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I did
Yeah.
reread Redwall, the middle grade fiction book, a couple years ago. Totally holds up for what it's worth. But yeah.
But there's those great stories that you grew up with as a kid. And I'm like, oh, now that I'm, well into my 40s, like, does it hold up? Does it still affect me differently? Do I notice different things about it?
Yeah.
So.
Do you remember the first book you ever read?
First book I ever read, I do not remember, but I
Danny
read...
and the Dinosaur? I love Danny and the
I mean, I was an
Still
avid
museum.
Hardy Boys reader growing up because my dad had all of those.
I'm trying to think. But yeah, the
Like
early,
I said, Brian Jacques, the Redwall series was big for me in middle grade.
Yeah. Babysitter's Club. I loved some Babysitter's Club. As a middle schooler, I could sit down and read a whole book in one day. And that's, I think, when my mom was like, "Are you okay?"
Goosebumps was another big series, obviously. Loved Goosebumps. And Choose Your Own Adventure books, which
Oh yes.
we did just get a new release of a new Choose Your Own Adventure book, which we were both like, holy cow, Choose Your Own Adventure is still a thing.
Yeah.
Same covers and everything,
Yeah.
same look, same branding.
Love that.
Yeah.
Did you? This is a little bit of an esoteric question, but it's like, what kept you in there with reading? What was the physical process? It was the imagery. What happens as a reader that you first remember and that still draws you back?
I think it's like escaping reality, honestly. Whether it's a book set in current times or, some kind of fantasy dream world, even as a kid and now, it's just kind of, you read maybe for different interests or different reasons now, but I think it's a little bit of that like transportation, it takes you to a different world or a different time and place, and then learning about other people's stories and adventures and just like wanting to know what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're like with a really good book, especially if it hits you at the right time and that kind of thing, like you just kind of space out and you kind of lose yourself in the moment, and you are that character, you are in that world, be it a very modern literary fiction book or even a nonfiction book. It's like kind of like if you're on like a long run and all of a sudden you kind of hit that like runner's high, and like you aren't thinking about running anymore, you aren't thinking about how tired you are just zoned out and you're doing it, And like when you really click in with a good book that really hits you personally at the right time and place, it's one of those things where you can just immediately sink into that character and everything around you kind of goes away. And I think for me at least, it's like trying to find the books that trigger that. And obviously, like, they don't all do that. More don't than do. But the more you read, the more books you find like that, and the more context you have when you're reading other stuff to be able to better kind of like fall into that space.
Would you consider yourselves better readers today? And if so, why?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a different reader than I was. Like when the high school I went to had a really great English like literature program, and we were taught to always hold a pencil, take notes, you know. And now I am a very fast reader. I don't take notes, but I think because of that kind of training back then, it helps me to read the way I do now. But yeah, I guess I also think I'm more open to not just staying in a lane or a genre. I mean, we get in so many books every week, and I'm like, oh, I remember ordering this, looked really good, I can't wait to read it, or just a topic like that. I'm like, this sounds really interesting, and I think, you know, people want to learn more about snakes. Like, look how in depth this is, and the photographs, and like, I want to look through it too, even if it's maybe not something that I would have naturally picked up 5 years ago.
I definitely haven't gotten any faster.
You have not.
I'm not a fast reader. Jenny, God, there would be times where like we'll sit down and she'll be like, "Man, I read like 200 pages of this book today," and I'll be like, "I read like 20 pages of my book in the same amount of time." So I am jealous of that, quite frankly. I would say that I think that the more you read, the better you become as a reader, simply because you have more context and you have more background and understanding of nuance, of allusions to other things. I'm reading a book right now, World's End by T.C. Boyle, and a lot of it takes place in kind of the 1960s in Hudson Valley. And there's a lot of references to kind of things locally there and culturally and of the time that he doesn't go out of his way to explain. And I think the more you read, the more that type of stuff is more easily digestible. You get it quicker. You understand the detail that he's trying to paint on that scene without him having to spend time explaining, why the clothes look like they did or what that means. And so I think the more you read, you just pick up more and more and more information to be able to apply to future books that you're reading. So I don't know that I'm a better reader technically, but I would say that when I read a book now, I have to Google search what certain words mean a lot less than I used to.
Books and movies. Do you guys like movies? Yeah. Now, this is always an interesting question I have for everybody.
Book's always better.
Almost always better.
Almost always better. I can probably name 3 or 4 that I think the movie's better, but book's always better.
Would you prefer to see the movie first and then read the book, or read the book and see the movie? Because if you read the book first, the movie's never going to be as good.
Oh, for me, I have to read the book first, because if I've seen the movie, even though I know the book is probably going to be better, it also I already know how it's going to end. And the book takes so much more effort. And I feel like that's one of the more rewarding things about reading the book, is that it does take effort and you do have to kind of go through it with the characters. Whereas a movie, you can more passively kind of let it happen to you. You can just kind of watch the movie and zone out and look at your phone from time to time, or go get something from the refrigerator in the middle of it. Whereas the book, you are either reading it or you are not reading it. And so it takes a little bit more effort. It's more rewarding in my mind. But if I already know how it's going to end, is that effort worth it? There's really also only been probably a few books that I've read having already seen the TV show or movie. Because, again, I have never read Stephen King, because I've seen so many TV shows and movies based on Stephen King that I'm like, what's left for me to read from him that I don't know what's going to happen? And the answer is plenty. I should read Stephen King.
I don't think
But
they've ever made a decent. Well, maybe yeah. They're nowhere close. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like books always better read the book first, unless my one exception is if it's going to be a series,
Mm-hmm.
and there's multiple books, and it's going to be multiple, usually in the fantasy or dystopian world. I maybe will go see the movie or watch the TV show first and be like, am I into this, and am I ready to commit to 7 or 8 books?
Yes. Well, it totally irritate. Like it can be irritating to like have their images in your head.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's one of the great things about reading, and probably the imaginative part of it is lost is the wrong word, but it's not practiced as much. Is that now you've got their characters? Now it's their character. It's not their interpretation; it's their characters that are
Yeah.
stuck in your head while you're
But on the flip
usually-
side, it's worse when you read the book first and then you see it and you're like, that's
Oh.
not how I imagined them. and then
But
you're just thinking about
Now you know
that
what
for 2 hours.
every screenwriter in the world feels.
I will say this. In a couple of instances, specifically Raymond Chandler and Sheila Hammett, I read those books with Humphrey Bogart as the detective, and I think it might make them slightly better.
Yeah.
Just because I saw The Maltese Falcon and I saw The Big Sleep
Yeah.
before I read any of their books, and then I started reading a bunch more of their books, and it's just very comforting to imagine Humphrey Bogart in that role. But
Yeah.
99% of the time, wholly agree that it takes your ability to kind of imagine what you want it to be
Yeah.
off the table.
The Big Sleep. I read an annotated one of that on ebook, and it was awesome because you could go to all the different things.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Really interesting. Well, we've introduced something as of the last podcast that we
Okay.
love to call how you keep it real.
Okay.
So think about something you're doing right now. And keeping it real just means keeping it authentic. Like, what is something you're working on right now that you're like, I want to keep that pure?
I would say, Michael had this idea as we were like trying to get open about this event, and I feel like we've kept it pretty true to what we wanted it to be. We have an event once a month called Extra Credit, and we invite in a professor from the College of Charleston to give a talk on whatever they're currently researching or whatever their specialty is. It is not, I wrote a book, let's talk about the book. It is not, it is educational. It is, the idea around it was to have a welcoming, chill space for the community to come in and have a glass of wine and learn something from someone really smart for 30 minutes. And I think that was one of
Hour and a
those, I think that was one of those ideas that like he had, and we talked it through. We met some great partners that help us organize it, and it stayed, again, it's first come, first get a seat. Like, it's just kind of what we wanted it to be. But again, it's like no frills.
But it's very much in the vein of kind of what we wanted this space to be, a place where you can come get something to drink, you can meet other people from your neighborhood, from your community, and you can have discussions and you can learn things and you can, kind of chew on bigger topics a little bit more in a way that I don't think we do very much nowadays, because everything's just such an online forum and it's chat boards and it's all that kind of stuff, or it's you going down some Wikipedia rabbit hole by yourself while you're probably supposed to be doing something else. And it's a way to go to a bar and have something to drink, and it's not primarily about that.
Right.
You can go learn about 1700s Europe witchcraft, and you can learn about,
ocean planets.
ocean search for life in outer space, and
The inequalities of disaster relief.
yeah. So just kind of all over the place, but it's a way that then when it's over, you can talk to the professor, you can talk to the people sitting next to you. It's been one of the coolest things that we've done, where it really does. There's been a lot of people that we know because they're regulars here who've met each other after these things, because it's just kind of like, oh, what'd you think of that thing? Or like, oh, I had read this thing about that, I didn't realize this happened, and things like that, where it generates these conversations, which when we first kind of dreamed up this place, we kind of wanted it to be a bit of a clubhouse where people can come and they can hang out for a while and they can meet up with each other and they can meet up with their friends or make new friends. And it's a place where you can read and you can expand your mind, or you can come and you can talk to people and expand your mind that way and meet people in the community and kind of engage in a way that I don't know that we do a ton as much these days as maybe we did in the past, where it can be a community place and you can meet strangers and people who live down the street from you you've never talked to before, and it kind of gives you the medium through which to do that.
It's awesome.
And we have 1 cent Swedish fish. We're keeping it real that way.